Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Allen Hour. It's Friday, so you know what that means. It's time for Allen's Key Picks. Now, last week did not go as planned, 1-3 on the week, so we'll address the big elephant in the room, the 500,000 pound elephant in the room. We'll address the three losses first. Um, Again, not the greatest of weeks, but before we get into that, I got three more picks for you guys this week, so we'll get to those later. Sunday, we'll have our Giants postgame show. Jackson Dart just got ruled out at the time of this being filmed, so Jameis Winston will start against Detroit on Sunday. His second straight start as the Giants look for win number 3 out in Motown. We'll have the postgame video up for that after Sunday's game. Without further ado, let's get to it. Allen's Key Picks, episode 2. So, again, 3 losses last week. Just to recap you on what I had last week, the one win was Georgia minus the 6 points against Texas. They won that game 35-10. We'll get into that. I'll save that one for last to end on a good note, end on a win, right? Recapping all these games from last week. My key pick was Indiana minus 28.5, and they won by 24. It was a close game in terms of the spread. It didn't go their way. I thought they would score a lot more than 31 points. 31-7 was the final. I thought they would score more. To be honest, looking back at the box score now, just Mendoza, 22 of 24, 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, sets a program record for most passing touchdowns in a single season for Indiana with 30. I just figured that we would have gotten a little bit more out of Indiana offensively. And to be honest, the one score Wisconsin had for the entire game was on a fourth down play at midfield in the second quarter. So they really didn't move the ball all that much other than that one play. And again, it was on 4th and 1. Indiana got fooled. I believe it was a fake handoff, play action, and they dumped it down the seam to the tight end who was wide open. And credit to my uncle, he said run that play, and they did. But that was the one play offensively Wisconsin scored on. Everything else was shut down. So I thought Indiana played this well. I thought I had the winner, even though obviously they didn't win. The big issue was Indiana just could not stop Wisconsin's pass rush at times, and it killed drives, whether it was on 3rd down and it forced Indiana to punt, or it was on second and longs and made, or second downs and made 3rd down even longer and really difficult to pick up the first down. It just killed drives. I believe they sacked Mendoza 5 times in this game, which is highly irregular for a team like Indiana, undefeated, has some big wins on the year. Wisconsin was able to get home on a lot of those pass plays. So you got to give credit to the Badgers. They definitely did a good job in that area. Just a tough beat, in my opinion. I thought I played this correct. I just think because of the pass rush from the Badgers, ruining some drives early on. Again, Indiana was only up 10-7 at the half in this game. They were able to score 21 points in the second half and give up none. So I just felt like in that first half, Wisconsin's pass rush did enough to keep this spread close and to keep Indiana at 31 total. So again, that does not hit. Final score 31-7. So 0-1 on the key picks. On my lock on the card of key picks. Moving on to Oklahoma, Alabama. Again, I thought this was another game I picked the correct side of watching the game. I thought Alabama was the better football team. I just thought that the reason Oklahoma beat Tennessee a couple weeks back was because Tennessee kind of beat themselves, and I came away with the same takeaway for Alabama in this game. They beat themselves. They were up. They were down 17-14 at the half, but you look back at some of those scoring plays for Oklahoma, and I'll check my notes. I wrote this down last week, so I had it ready for this week. The one interception was a pick 6 in the first quarter. It gave Oklahoma a 10-0 lead. So right then and there, when you're trying to cover 6 points, being down 10-0 in the first quarter because your quarterback throws a pick 6 does not help things at all. Touchdown and an interception. And again, my main reason for picking Alabama was I thought the quarterback matchup favored them. I thought Simpson was very good this year at limiting turnovers. And in this game, he did not do that. A pick 6, as I mentioned, and he had a fumble later on. He had a fumble later on in the game as well. But let's dive a little bit deeper in here. Oklahoma's defense, you got to give them a lot of credit. They won the Sooners this game. They forced 3 Alabama takeaways, an interception and 2 fumbles, which led to 17 points off those turnovers. I mentioned the pick 6 earlier. Ryan Williams, the receiver, muffed the punt in the second quarter. Oklahoma turned that into 6 points thanks to a John Mateer 20-yard rushing touchdown. That gave the Sooners a 17-7 lead. Then later in the game, defensive lineman Taylor Wine, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, so excuse me if that's incorrect, but Taylor Wine sacked and stripped Ty Simpson, which was recovered by Oklahoma on Alabama's 31-yard line. They turned that into a field goal, and that gave them the 23-21 lead late. And that was all the scoring in the fourth quarter. You look at the box score, Oklahoma 3, Alabama nothing. So That was the difference of the game, was Oklahoma's ability to force turnovers and create takeaways on Alabama offensively, and it won them this game. And I thought Alabama outplayed them. I mean, you look at Mateer's numbers: 138 passing yards. Their leading rusher had 34 yards. The leading receiver had 36 yards. Offensively, Oklahoma was not that impressive at all. Again, 17 of those 23 points were because of turnovers on Alabama's side offensively. So I thought Alabama's defense came to play, especially to cover a 6-point spread. It's just one of those games similar to the Tennessee-Oklahoma game where the offense for the team you're betting on just gives the other team so many extra chances, gifts them free points, and it's really difficult to cover a 6-point spread when you're down 10-0 in the first quarter because your quarterback throws a pick six. So tough beat there. Moving on to the worst play of the card and the most laughable play of the card, BYU beating TCU 44-13. Now, admittedly, this was a slight lean. I said it in the video. This was not a big bet for me at all. I thought this might be a Josh Hoover takeover game. We got the complete opposite. And honestly, shame on me because the reasons I cited for the Indiana game, and I know those did not cover, but I believe they should have. This was a game I thought was in a spot where you could have made the argument BYU coming off a tough loss at Texas Tech, right? Everyone has that image of them in their head. They lose that game 29-7. They come back home, which they historically play very well at, and they're only favored by a handful of points. I had them at 4, but I believe the number got down to even 3, closer to Saturday last week. So it was a small number to cover, and they showed that they were worthy of being favored by more than 3, way more than that, probably closer to 10 to 14 points if this game took place this week. I think that's where they would put that number. I think it would skyrocket just because you saw what BYU really is. And Texas Tech, the team that they lost to the week prior, very, very good team. They have one loss on the year. They're ranked 5 now in the playoff rankings. So I just think because of how they looked against that team on the road, it really impacted this spread. And I should have paid more attention to that in hindsight. But another big loss here. Josh Hoover did not play well. 10 for 23, 183 yards, 2 picks. And it was just all BYU. Again, 44-13. I was watching this game. It was a 10 o'clock kickoff game last Saturday, and it got to a point where it was just such a beatdown that I just stopped watching because whether they lost 35-13, 30-13, 44-13, it doesn't matter. They didn't cover the spread, and again, a difference of a touchdown or 2 touchdowns really didn't make a difference for me. BYU was in complete control of this game from the get-go. They were up 27-10 at the half. And again, asking a team like TCU on the road down 17 at halftime to then come back and cover 4 against a team that just seemed like they were rolling and everything was clicking, it's tough to ask. So just a bad pick on my end. Hand up for that. But we move along. Now to the one bright spot of last week. And boy, did we need it, seeing how the other 3 games went. A couple where I thought we should have won, one where we definitely should not have won. This game felt very rewarding because it was a 6-point spread. Georgia wins 35-10, and they win the game by 25 points. They damn near beat out the spread by 20 points. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. It's like betting a 30-point underdog and they win the game outright. That's the feeling you get. You're like, wow, that was really sharp of me. And for all the reasons I cited, Kirby Smart being just a winner over Steve Sarkisian in their history, in their short history, albeit, but last year, they just had their number. This year continues that. Texas had never played in Athens. Thought Arch Manning was going to struggle. I thought he'd be good for a turnover or 2. He had a pick in this game. As Texas was going down the field trying to drive and get points, he throws a pick, right? I just had a feeling that Gunnar Stockton was going to play his ass off, and he did. 4 passing touchdowns. He did have an interception, but he also had a rushing touchdown. The guy's an absolute machine. 5 total touchdowns and only 5 incompletions, 24 of 29 for 229 yards. Gunnar Stockton is awesome, man. When this offense is clicking and he's throwing down the field and not just throwing these receiver screens out in the flats, they can really move the football, and I was really impressed. And the biggest thing was the onside kick. I mean, who thought that was coming, right? I mean, just checking my notes here. I believe they were up 21-10 right after they scored that 3rd touchdown, and then they kicked the onside kick. Ballsy play. You don't see that too often, but it worked out in their favor, and you got to give them credit. In a game that was close for the most part up until that point, I mean, you're talking like that touchdown where they go up 21-10, they go into the 4th quarter, they make a splash, and they steal a possession. They don't give Texas a chance to respond to potentially make it 21-17, 21-13, keep it 1 possession, right? No. Kick the onside, recover. It was done to perfection. And they end up scoring a touchdown off of that as well, which was huge. 28-10. And right there is when you knew that spread was kind of a done deal. They score with 9 minutes left. I know it's a lot of game left, but just the way that Texas was playing offensively, for them to go down the field and get 18 points unanswered and then hold Georgia's offense to not score any points, which I understand that's what unanswered means, but you get what I'm saying. The spread looked already a done deal from there. And then once they made it 35-10, that was just the cherry on top. So again, I read this game perfectly well. Almost had it down to a T. Again, Arch Manning pick. Gunnar Stockton played his ass off. Kirby Smart out coaching Sarkisian. Onside kick is the main reason, right? And, not that Peyton Woodring was kicking field goals. It was only extra points this game. But the onside kick, that whole 4 or 5 minutes I spent on the kicking advantage for Georgia over Texas. Who would have thought it would be used on an onside kick? Certainly not me. I thought for sure it was going to be a 50-plus yarder or some kind of a long field goal that got this spread for us. But no, it was an onside kick. And you got to give Peyton Woodring a lot of credit for perfecting that kick, for executing it, and for the hands team to get the ball. So this week, I have only 3 plays, and I hope things go better this week, this time around, because we need to make this record better. We're 1-3, 0-1 on our best bets of the card, and this needs to change. So again, 3 picks. I got 2 in college football, and my first NFL pick coming to you now. Arkansas plus 8.5 against the Texas Longhorns. And yes, I'm fading the Longhorns once again. I did it last week with Georgia, -6. This week, Texas comes back home, and Arkansas takes the trip there. Now, I know a lot of people will look at that Georgia game and how that unfolded and will say to themselves, this is a get-right game for Texas. Lay the points. This is a rout. Arkansas, not a great team. But Arkansas is just one of those teams that finds a way to hang around and plays up to the opponent every week. Does not matter who they're playing. The only game this year that they have not done that is the Notre Dame game, and that was a while ago. You want to look at their last 5 games. They have shown up, especially in SEC play. You look at all their SEC games. They have yet to win a conference game, by the way, and they will not win this game. I don't think they will, but they'll have a fighter's chance, and they'll be in a position late to possibly win it. You look at their schedule. Again, they're 2-8. Their only wins are against Alabama A&M week 1 and Arkansas State week 2. They have not won since September 6th. It's been a while. Well over 2 months. But you look at their SEC conference games. At Ole Miss, they're ranked 6th right now. They lose that game 41-35. Taylon Green, the quarterback for Arkansas, 305 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. 14 carries, 115 yards, a touchdown. So well over 400 yards of total offense from the quarterback, 2 total touchdowns, and no turnovers, no interceptions. Then the outlier game is Notre Dame. They lose 56-13 at home. Taylon Green does not have a great game whatsoever. Notre Dame, Jeremiah Love, all those guys just able to run on Arkansas the entire game. But then these last 5 weeks in SEC play, as soon as they get back to that, at the time, 12th ranked Tennessee, they lose 34-31. Taylon Green, the quarterback for Arkansas, once again, 256 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 17 carries, 63 yards, a touchdown. Then they come back home and play number 4 ranked A&M. They lose 45-42. Taylon Green, 256 yards again, 3 touchdowns, 12 carries, 85 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. So, we're talking 5 total touchdowns, well over 300 total yards. The next week against Auburn, they lose 33-24, so a 9-point loss. So right on that cusp of 8.5. But again, that's another game where it was a second half collapse for Arkansas. They're up 21-10 at halftime in this game, and they get outscored 23-3 in the second half and lose that game. So that's a tough beat for an 8.5. But then you go to Mississippi State, 38-35. At LSU, 23-22. They've lost a lot of close games in SEC play, and half of them have been to ranked teams. Some of the top teams in this conference. You look at where Ole Miss and where A&M are ranked right now. Georgia is sandwiched in the middle of both of them at 4. A&M is 3, and Ole Miss is 6. And they've played up to the opponent good portion of this season in SEC play. So I'm confident that Arkansas finds a way to score points in this game against Texas. And I think despite Arkansas's 0-6 record in conference play, I think they find a way to get points. And I think they find a way to keep this within 8 points. I think Arkansas keeps this close. History would show that they do. In fact, they might even have a lead at some point in this game. But I don't think they'll win the game because they've shown the ability to have leads and choke them in the second half. They've also shown the ability to keep games tight in games they probably shouldn't be tight in. And they've figured out ways to do that. And I think Texas defensively has shown you they're not the greatest. These are their last 3 weeks. 35 against Georgia, 31 against Vanderbilt, which, by the way, they had a huge lead in that game. They're up 34-10 in that game. And they give up 21 points in the final frame to Vanderbilt. Then the week before that, against Mississippi State, it takes a heroic comeback for them to win that game. They had to score 24 points in the fourth quarter, and they win in an overtime. But they gave up 38 points to Mississippi State on the road. So I have no faith in this Texas defense. I think Arkansas keeps this game within the 8.5. So again, taking the Razorbacks plus the 8.5 points. Taylon Green, I think for Arkansas, has done a good job this year, and I think he'll continue it this week. in Austin, Texas. So for the second game here of the college football slate, we head to Dallas as SMU hosts Louisville. SMU a 3-point favorite at home, and this is an interesting game. It's a very even matchup. A lot of the statistics are even. A lot of the numbers that I've seen when researching both of these teams offensively and defensively, some are very close, some are very wide apart. We'll dive into it all, but it's an interesting game. SMU, I believe, is the only team of these two that can still make the ACC championship game. They're sitting at 5-1 in conference play, and they're 7-3 overall. Louisville 4-3 in conference play. Georgia Tech, Virginia are 6-1. Pittsburgh also 5-1, SMU 5-1. So I don't think that Louisville can make it. This is their final ACC game. They go play Kentucky at home next week, so that's an SEC opponent. So at best, Louisville can finish 5-3 in conference play. So although they can't make the ACC championship game, and they probably won't make the college football playoff after dropping 2 straight games to Cal and Clemson at home, they still can play spoiler. As I said, SMU is still in contention in the running to make the ACC championship game. They're in a good position. If SMU were to win this week, they're 6-1 in conference play, and they play Cal next week, so they could finish 7-1. So if Virginia or Georgia Tech were to drop a game in these last 2 weeks in conference play, they would slip right in, assuming Pittsburgh doesn't then also, find a way to win a game, one of these last couple games. But SMU still playing for an ACC championship berth and a crack at the playoff for their second straight season. So a lot of incentive there for SMU. But I look at this game, and again, I said it's very close when you look at a lot of the statistics. And there's some statistics that are very far and wide apart, which are concerning, and I'll address them. Louisville can play spoiler this week. They can also keep their season alive in the sense of getting a better bowl game and getting a big road win as well before they come home and play Kentucky, and bouncing back after 2 tough losses at home against Cal in overtime by 3 and by a 1 point against Clemson at home last week. And if you watch that game, it was just a kicking fiasco for Louisville. There was a missed field goal, a missed extra point by their main kicker, Ravnier. And then their backup came in and he missed a game-winning field goal. It was just a mess of a game. But I do think this team is good enough defensively to cover the 3. So that's my pick here, Louisville plus the 3. And here's why. SMU, to boil it down to the basics, SMU is the better offense. Louisville is the better defense. And that's looking at it just from the outside. You dive into some of these numbers here, and the ones that really stick out to me are the passing yards allowed. So this stat definitely favors Louisville. They rank 26th in FBS, allowing 188 yards per game, while SMU is second to last in college football. Think about that. 136 teams. They are second to last. They give it up 298 yards per game. It's quite a lot. Look at the passing offenses for Louisville. That's an area in which that's not really their main way of scoring or moving the ball down the field. They rank 52nd, 243 yards per game passing. So Miller Moss, despite having a good year last year at USC, this year has not been as good, I would imagine, as a lot of Louisville fans would agree with me, has not been as good as they thought, but still, this matchup favors Louisville because, again, they're not second to last in passing offense. They're 52nd. So that's a big area of concern for SMU defensively. The rushing defense is another thing that pops out at me as well. They're both very good in this area. SMU ranks 15th, just giving up 102 yards per game on the ground. Louisville ranks 23rd, 110 yards per game on the ground. So it's fairly even in the run game, but SMU really struggling against the pass this year. Red zone offenses is another big stat here that I like in Louisville's favor. They rank 29th on the season. They're scoring at a 90% clip in the red zone, so that is touchdowns, that's field goals, any way to score in that area. And you have to imagine that a couple percentage points were knocked off after last week's game against Clemson, missing those couple field goals, or maybe just one of them was in the red zone. But still, 90% is a good spot to be at, while SMU is ranked 52nd with 87.5%. Now, I understand it's only 2.5 percentile difference, but, down at the end of the game, would you rather the team that has a 90% chance or an 87% chance? You're going to take the team with a 90% chance to score potentially points at the end to get you that cover on the spread. Both teams are fairly similar with penalties per game at just under 7 a game. SMU averages about 6 more penalty yards per game at 71, Louisville at 65. So these are two teams that are not the most disciplined football teams in FBS. They're fairly comparable when it comes to total yards per game. SMU ranks 53rd at 406 yards per game. Louisville ranks 59th at 400 yards per game. And third down conversion offensively fairly comparable as well. 38.3% for Louisville, 37% for SMU. though that ranks 84 for Louisville and 95 for SMU in college football. Third down percentage on defense, so third down conversion percentage, there's a bit of a difference. 31.7% for Louisville, which ranks 18th in college football, and SMU coming in at 34.5% at ranked 34th as well. So I think the big difference here is you're getting a team in Louisville that's had a couple tough losses these past couple of weeks, and you could argue should have won both of them, especially last week against Clemson. They had multiple chances at field goals to take the lead and win the game in the end, and it just didn't happen. And they're also 3-0 on road games this year, beating Pitt 34-27 at Miami. At the time, they were ranked 2, 24-21 at Virginia Tech, 28-16. So this is a team that's been able to play up to the task on the road. So again, I feel it's a fairly even game. The 3-point spread, I feel, is an accurate spread. I think that's the correct number. But I'm going to take the points with Louisville because I think the better defensive team here is Louisville. Defensively, they'll keep SMU at bay. And I think because of SMU's struggling pass defense, I think Miller Moss and this pass offense will get it together on Louisville and be able to put together some drives and go down the field, move the ball, and score some points. Now, here's a stat that I found kind of interesting. SMU ranks second in red zone defense. When you look up on NCAA's website and you go to the red zone defense tab, you click on there and they rank second behind Ohio State. So immediately I'm thinking like, wow, it's a good red zone defense. But then you kind of peel back the curtain a little bit. And yes, while their percentage is low, the second lowest in college football at 65.8%, they've also given up 38 red zone attempts. So I'll give them credit that they're stopping teams, and it's impressive with more attempts that they've been able to keep that number pretty low at 65.8%. But I just don't like the amount of times that they've allowed teams to get in the red zone, while Louisville has only allowed 27 red zone attempts. So that's 11 less red zone attempts on the season. Each team has played 10 games. So you do the math. That's one extra red zone attempt per game that SMU is allowing. So I'm not a huge fan of that. So it's a bit of a misleading stat. Take it however you want. So is it more impressive that that number is still at 66%? We'll round up through almost 40 attempts, or are you more concerned that they're giving up 40 attempts to begin with? So you take that for what you will. Just figured I would share that. It's an interesting stat. I do think that Louisville offensively will figure out ways to score in the red zone, despite that number of SMU being second. Louisville also has an 81.5% percentage red zone defense, so it's 47th. So it's not as close. But again, they don't have nearly as many attempts given up. So take that for what you will. Maybe that decides you fade this pick. Maybe you tail me on this pick. But I just think that's a high number, 40 attempts, 38 attempts to be exact. Something has to give. That's the interesting thing with this game. Something has to give, right? I just mentioned the red zone defense percentage for both teams. And then offensively, the red zone percentage, Louisville ranks 29th. They have a 90% red zone rate. So which way is it going to go? Is it going to be Louisville having success in the red zone all day because they hit it at a 90% clip? Is it going to be SMU being successful in the red zone like they have been all year, 66% given up? Something has to give. And we'll see on Saturday. I just think taking the points, you're getting points with the better defensive team that might be able to create some turnovers and give their offenses more chance to go and score. A team that can run the football against a team that can't defend the pass too. I just think that this is a game where Louisville bounces back after a couple tough losses at home and corrects their season here, gets it back on track with a big win at SMU as they prepare to come back home to play Kentucky in the season finale. Now for my pick in the NFL. We head to week 12. We had a great game last night with the Texans and the Buffalo Bills. The Texans getting the 23-19 win. What a crazy finish, by the way. 4th and 27. They run the hook and ladder play type thing, and they get it all the way down the field. Crazy game. But obviously that game already played. That's not my pick. My pick, though, Seattle Seahawks against the Tennessee Titans. The spread 13.5 in favor of Seattle. The game is in Nashville. Seattle coming off a 21-19 loss against the Los Angeles Rams in LA in what was Sam Darnold's worst game of this 2025 season. Maybe one of the worst in his career in terms of just throwing 4 interceptions, no touchdowns, right? I mean, it's a tough game. And they only lost by 2. I mean, that's how legit this Seattle defense is. And the Rams are a very good team. I mean, they're 8-2, and let's not forget, if the Eagles don't block that field goal at the end of that game way back when in the season and return that for a touchdown, the Rams are staring at 9-1 right now on the year and the number 1 seed in the NFC. Home field advantage throughout the playoffs with a first-round bye. That's this Los Angeles Rams team. And again, they force 4 takeaways off Sam Darnold. and they only win by 2 points. Puka Nacua played, Devontae Adams played. They held him to just one catch, albeit it was a touchdown. But this Seattle defense is legit. Now, I will say their run defense did get a bit exposed. That has been their bread and butter, being able to defend the run. Now, the Rams are a very good team. Kyron Williams ran for 91 yards on 12 carries for a touchdown. He averaged 7.6 yards a carry. He had a 34-yard run. So on the total as a team, they had 119 yards on 22 carries. That's 5.5 yards per gain and a touchdown. The Seattle defense on the run side of it did not play as well as they have in weeks past. Honestly, for the entire season, they've been the best run defense in football. The biggest thing for me is Seattle 7-3 on the season, right? One of the better run defenses in football, coming off a tough loss at the Rams. Sam Darnold throws 4 picks. Now they go to Nashville, a get-right game. Tennessee, they're 1-9 on the season. Rookie quarterback in Cam Ward. They haven't won a game at home. They're 0-5. You might be saying to yourself, 13.5 points in the NFL is a ton. And you're not wrong. But I've been on this side of the coin before against the Titans. I bet the Colts weeks ago. I believe it was minus 14. So half a point higher than what this is at now. They won that game 38-14. The Titans have lost 5 games this year by 14 or more points. And I think Seattle, this is a game where they're coming off that tough loss at LA. You could have a Sam Darnold performance like he did against the Commanders a couple weeks ago, on Thursday Night Football, where that game was not even close. Didn't even have an incompletion at halftime. I mean, that's how efficient Sam Darnold was in that game. I think there's a chance you get a similar performance in this game here. The ultimate get back, get right game for Darnold, for Smith-Njigba, for this entire offense. I think this is an absolute rout. I think Seattle gets right back on track from where they were before last week. Again, they beat Arizona by 22 the week before the Rams game. Before that, they beat the Commanders pretty handedly. They beat them 38-14. The Titans are way worse than those teams. I just think that offensively, the Titans, the only way that they've been able to cover some of these spreads, sorry to get off track, the only way they've been able to cover these spreads in most weeks is because the offense gives the other team throws a pick six of some kind. It's happened before. Specifically, the one that comes to mind is the Chargers game, where I believe they were also favored at a similar number. I believe it finished at 9.5, so a couple points less. But the game is in Nashville. Chargers coming into that game were 5-3, heavily favored, and because of a couple defensive touchdowns, one being the pick six in the first quarter, which gave Tennessee a 7-0 lead, and then a punt return that gave them a 14-7 lead. That stuff kills big spreads. And the Chargers ended up winning this game by 7 points. So you take away one of those 2 touchdowns, and they covered this spread. So I think in this game, I think Seattle makes less mistakes. I don't think Sam Darnold throws any pick sixes. I don't think Seattle gives up any punt return touchdowns. I think it's a pretty cut and dry vanilla game from Seattle defensively, meaning they give up no more than 13 points. And I think offensively, they score no less than 24. So you're going to be living in that range of 10 to 11 points, I think. And then as the game progresses, I think Seattle pulls away. So I think this game is 31-13, 31-10 final written all over it. I think I really love this play. In fact, this is the lock on the card. This is the lock pick of the week. There is no way in hell Tennessee covers this spread. I would be shocked. I would be appalled if Sammy D comes out here and continues to have the game he had against the Rams and does this against the Titans and gives them extra chances to score. And I would be very surprised if indeed Cam Ward in this Titans offense figures out a way to run on this Seattle defense, move the ball down the field, and put up points. I just don't see it happening. I think Tennessee is the worst team in football, and I think they have been all season long. So there you have it. That rounds out the 3 picks this weekend I have, 2 in college and 1 in the pros. Book it. And let's win some money this week, folks. Make sure to stay tuned for Sunday, again, as we'll have Giants post-game coverage after the Giants take on the Lions in Motown in Detroit. Again, Jackson Dart out with a concussion, so his second straight game out. Jameis Winston will start his second straight game, and hopefully the Giants get a win, but hopefully at the very end of things, it's a good game. Jameis looks good, some redeeming qualities in that game, and we'll see. But again, post-game video coming Sunday, so stay tuned for that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel here on the Allen Hour. Follow my Instagram, my Twitter. All the socials will be in the description box below. Make sure to ring the bell here on the channel so that you're notified every time I post here. Leave a like, comment, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.